So today I'm going to talk about heartbeats and remarkables, which is kind of an approach or a philosophy, or if you're feeling fancy, a methodology to marketing, both offline and online, that my colleague and I have developed over the years. And we really use it to inform our work. And we find when we talk about it, it tends to be quite a sticky idea with people, and they use it to inform their work as well. So I want to begin with a little anecdote. This is a photo from 2004 from San Francisco. And in 2004, gay marriage wasn't legal in the United States. However, San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, legalized it briefly. Their decision was overturned, but the city legalized it. And so there was a huge queue, a huge lineup of people, same-sex people who wanted to get married, and so they queued up at City Hall to take advantage of this brief window where they would be able to become legally married. Since then, of course, gay marriage has been legalized in both Canada and the United States, but at the time it was not. And so I was observing this from Vancouver, and I was interested in it, and then I saw, these were the early days of blogs, right? And I saw a blog post about an office in Minnesota that had pooled some money and sent a random bouquet, of a congratulatory bouquet, to a random couple that was waiting in line at City Hall. And I really liked that gesture, and I wanted to repeat it. But then I looked up how much it was to send a bouquet, and it was oh, it's going to be $100. I want to be supportive, and I like this symbolic idea, but I'm not sure I $100 like it. And then I thought, well, it would be interesting if somebody built a website where people could donate small amounts of money, and you could aggregate it and then buy bouquets in bulk, and your money would go a lot farther, and you would only spend $10 or $5 and not the full price of a bouquet. And so I thought, oh, actually, I can do that. So I built this very simple website. And understand, this is the days before Squarespace or Square, the payment system, or Venmo, or many of the kind of internet infrastructure pieces we have today. It was a much younger internet. So I built this super simple website, which there's a famous set of novels from the 80s and 90s called Flowers for Algernon. And so this is a pun on that, Flowers for Al and Dawn. And it just used this PayPal account, and people trusted me, I guess, because I had a web presence, and you could Google me even back then and find out who I was. And so it was a fun, jokey pun in the name, and so people donated money, and I organized volunteers to spend the money at flower wholesalers in the San Francisco area, and then to bring the bouquets and hand them out to people in line. And so we raised about 14,000 American dollars, which seemed like a lot of money to raise online in 2004. And it was worth remarking on. People talked about it. It got shared. It got covered in the media quite a bit. Here is a little article I found that's still up from Wired magazine that covered the story. And my favorite part about it is that's the drawing here, the picture here you see is of a 6-year-old who, with his mom, went to hand out flowers as one of the volunteers. And I think it was just terrific that this kid was already taken this little step toward activism at such a young age. But I tell this story to highlight that this little act, this little stunt, if you like, was remarkable. It was worthy of being remarked upon. And so this and various other kind of things like this that I did or observed in the early days of the internet really informed the development of this kind of approach, this Heartbeats and Remarkables approach, which I'm going to talk about now. So if we think just broadly, if we think expansively about what our challenges are as marketers, there are a lot. They're not all here, but I think these are some common ones I hear from clients, or I talk to other people and they struggle with these issues. They struggle with too much noise. That is to say, the marketplace is super, super busy. You're competing, not if you are a publisher, you're not just competing with other publishers producing books, you're competing with podcasts and magazines and movies and television and web series and YouTube and Twitch and TikTok. And so it's a very noisy marketplace for ideas, right? And so that leads to competition. You're competing with a lot of other organizations, a lot of other companies for your customers and potential customers' attention. Also, commodification. I see this as a real increasing challenge that so much of our digital marketing in particular now is getting increasingly commodified. The way I sometimes explain this using an old school metaphor is if you watch television, like regular old cable television, or if you see ads, you see an ad for a car. You've seen one ad for a car, you've pretty much seen all the car ads. It's just like the car like whooshing around rain-slicked streets, and it's super glossy, and there's a happy family, and dad or mom is driving, and it's like a set of tropes for a car ad. And so car ads are super commodified. They're commodities. They're all the same, right? And so what we see in the digital space is that has happened over 10 years very quickly as well. And it's going to increasingly happen. So just think of, I think of like even Facebook ads and how Facebook ads are increasingly run not by people, but by computers, right? Computers will help you pick the right images. They will make adjustments to those images. I mean, soon enough, computers will be suggesting what language to use. You can already test, obviously, different kinds of text in your ad, but eventually the computer will just be like, oh, you're selling a nonfiction book? Let me suggest some words for that. And so that commodification will make all the ads, all the marketing increasingly the same, right? And so how do you beat your competitors if you're all using the same tools to produce the same ads? Likewise, attention can be expensive depending on who you're trying to reach and when. Lots of organizations, lots of small businesses just can't afford to like buy attention in the traditional way, which is to say to run ads, to boost social posts and get attention. And then lastly, I think customers and supporters, I use supporters here to refer to supporters of nonprofit organizations or charities. Customers and supporters are bored. They're just tired of the usual stuff. They're tired of seeing more ads, tired of seeing more Facebook posts, more Instagram posts, all the same, all treated the same way, right? So these are just a few of the marketing challenges that I think we face. So what do we do when faced with these particular challenges? Well, our thinking, the way my colleague and I think about it, is what we call heartbeats and remarkables. Why do we have cows and why are they tinted purple on the screen? Because this idea is inspired by this book called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. Recommend you read it. It's a very short, thin little book. And he has this anecdote in it he tells where his family, he's American, and his family goes to England for the first time, and his family grew up in Manhattan or New York, I think, and so they haven't really seen cows. And so they're in the English countryside and they see cows for the first time, and they're delighted because the kids have not had a lot of farm experience, I guess. But then after seeing a few cows, cows are cows. They're pretty boring. But then Seth observes, well, what if there was a purple cow in the field? That would be worth remarking upon. And that's the origin of his book name, and that influenced how we came to think of heartbeats and remarkables. So heartbeats. The first part of our two-part dichotomy is heartbeats. And heartbeats are activities, marketing activities, that a company or an organization just does as routine, right? So social media, managing their website, regular events, regular advertising they might do. These are all heartbeat activities, and we call them heartbeats because they're like the heartbeat of the organization, and they're essential to keeping the organization alive, right? So what do heartbeats do? They inform people, right? You say, oh, we've got a new product, we've got a new book coming out, a new publication. They deepen relationships by building trust, by building credibility, and building authority, right? And so they nurture supporters or customers towards taking actions. So they're kind of nurturing, supporting activities. And they are, like I said, they're key to what the organization does. The organization cannot survive without heartbeat activities. However, if you only do heartbeat activities, everybody else is doing them too, right? Everybody else has social media. Everybody else has a website. Everybody else has email marketing. And odds are your company or organization is going to do that at average, right? They're going to be average at it. But even if you're really, really good at it, you're only kind of beat your competitors by a little bit because your competitors read all the same books and attend the same courses as you. And as we've talked about, the commodification of the sector means that like your email marketing newsletter is maybe going to be, if it's great, it's going to beat your competitors by like 5%, right? So 20% of people might open for the average for an industry, for the publishing industry, let's say the average open rate is 20%. So a really good email newsletter gets opened at 25%, which is great. It's great if you've written that and delivered that 25% open rate, meaning just quickly on open rates, an open rate is what percentage of people actually clicked the email to open it, to actually look at it, right? So 20% is average, 25% is above average in most industries. So you're only beating your competition by a very little, right? So you need to pair these kind of heartbeat activities with what we call remarkables. So remarkables, and I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of remarkables, but you can think of remarkables as clever original campaigns, as stunts, as gimmicks, as fresh thinking and fresh creative approaches to doing marketing. So they may tell a story in a new way. They tend to what I tend to think about with Heartbeats and Remarkables is that Remarkables get you new customers, right? They get you new attention. They grab the attention through the media or through social media or through other channels. And so new people see your organization, see your products, etc., see your company. And then the heartbeats engage those people and deepen them, right? Deepen those relationships. So like, oh yeah, that was a fun thing I saw. I'm going to follow that company on Instagram. And then the heartbeats, which are the regular Instagram posts, deepen that connection and maybe convert that like person who is just a looker, just like a tire kicker, just checking something out into an actual customer. Okay, so heartbeats, regular activities, remarkables are the like unusual, unorthodox, clever approaches. And I'm going to talk quickly through 10 remarkables now, just to give you some examples. These remarkables are mostly from the nonprofit space, but there are plenty of examples, many, many examples from the for-profit space as well. So let me begin. So this is 10 remarkables. Sometimes I do this little exercise where a colleague and me talk through 20 remarkables in 20 minutes. So we try to do it really fast and have people from the audience yell out the name of the next remarkable we'll do. We won't do that here. I think I'll just speak at a regular rate. I've just got pictures for each of these, and I'll just talk through what they are quickly. So this is a campaign called Brave Cut from Romania. And this was a cancer awareness campaign. And the idea was that you come and you get this kind of asymmetrical haircut. You can see it's short on one side and longer on the other. And then the hair you get cut off is donated to wigs for people who are going through chemotherapy. But what the magic of this is that it's like, the pink ribbons for cancer or rainbow ribbons for LGBTQ or other such campaigns. Your hair becomes that ribbon. It becomes the thing people ask you about and talk about. And so they say, oh, you got a new haircut. It's quite unusual. And then you tell them the narrative of the campaign. And so it's just literally worthy of being remarked upon because it's on your head all the time, right? So that's Brave Cut. So if you're curious about any of these, you can Google them and generally find them. And if you can't, let me know. This was a clever Instagram campaign. And what this organization did was they created this fake Instagram account called Louise Delage. And she's kind of this chic Parisian woman. And so she had a kind of classic Instagram influencer life, and she built up many, many followers. I forget how many over time. And then they revealed after a few months that she was actually an alcoholic, and the campaign was actually launched by the a French equivalent of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you go back, you'll see she has a drink in her hand or nearby in every single photo she appears in. And so this was a narrative about alcoholism and the struggles, and that everyone, alcoholics don't look a certain way, anybody can be one, and it was a very effective campaign in France in this regard. Cape Breton, if Donald Trump wins. Cape Breton is a region of Canada in the Maritimes that is really struggling with population decline, right? Very few people want to move to Cape Breton because it is cold in the middle of nowhere. So there's a DJ, like a radio DJ in Cape Breton, launched this website. He just used Squarespace, created it for free. And the idea was this kind of faux website that was for Americans to come to Cape Breton. This was in 2016 when Donald Trump was running in the American election. He said, look, if Donald Trump wins, we got lots of space in Cape Breton, come to Canada. And it was just kind of a joke, but it got a tremendous amount of attention. As you can see here, this is a more recent screenshot, but it got over 1 million people visited the site. They had over 1 million visitors. Barack Obama referenced it in a speech at some point, and it got a ton of media attention. And all it took was some like nice pictures and a Squarespace website, right? And the right idea. And so much of this is about having the right idea. This is from the Paris Climate Talks in 2015. I was there, and this is right at the entrance. It's actually outside the space as you're walking in. There's this giant, you can see kind of sculpture of a polar bear, and it's actually animatronic. It moves, and it kind of opens its mouth and roars. And I learned about it. It's Greenpeace commissioned this from an artist, and they made it out of all recycled materials and garbage, right? And so inside the climate talks, Paris climate talks were a very important moment in the climate in 2015, very important moment in the world of climate. And the world's eyes were kind of on that event for 3 weeks. And inside the climate talks, there were huge exhibitions by countries and companies. And, I remember the American booth, you say booth, but it was an entire exhibition space, had a giant globe, right? There was like 3 stories tall, and the India booth had like a water feature and this crazy fountain, and on and on and on. But really the thing that stood out and the thing that was remarkable, and as you can see here, became the like backdrop of 1,000 selfies, was this giant polar bear named Aurora, and she was like the size of a double-decker bus. And so that was the thing that was remarkable, not the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were spent inside, but this polar bear on the outside. This is remarkable from the UK, and it was a like a blood donation drive, a blood bank drive by Red Cross. And what they did is they partnered with government and companies to remove the letters A, O, and B, blood types, right? A, B, and O are the letters used to designate blood types. Remove them from signs, from some city signs and from some company signs like you see here. And so it was a very clever campaign. It was called The Missing Type. And it was just like to remind people to give blood and to think about people who need blood. And so I like this campaign a great deal. It does depend on your getting enough attention through traditional media or social media or other means, so that when somebody sees that, they're not just confused and think Waterstones has just like lost a couple letters from their sign, but in fact recognize it as being part of this campaign, because I saw that in the media yesterday. And the Red Cross needs to do enough work to educate and inform the staff at all these companies to be able to talk about to their customers, oh yeah, we removed the A and the O for this reason, right? And so there is with all of these, there's usually a ton of background work, but this one in particular would require a lot of background work and a lot of kind of ducks in a row to get this thing right. This is a campaign we were involved with. This is a giant blanket fort. Like you're in your house and you make a blanket fort out of cushions and blankets in your living room. We made a giant 2,000 square foot blanket fort in downtown Vancouver, working with Canuck Place Children's Hospice. So Children's Hospice is a place where very sick children are, and so they wanted to reach some new audiences, get some attention, do some fundraising, and so we were looking for a Remarkable that would be a good fit for that. And so this photo is from the construction of the blanket fort, or just the setup, but we created this space right in the center on Georgia Street, right downtown, not far from the downtown SFU campus, where it was full of childlike wonder. There were you can see some cupcakes there. They're not here yet, but there were superheroes and Disney princesses who came, and there were lots of things for kids to do. And we had Daniel Sedin, one of the Vancouver Canuck hockey players, come and officially open it. And a lot of the media came down because it was like this great, very telegenic, meaning designed for television thing, where it's like, oh, it's this weird blanket fort and there's lots to see and do and kids are here. And so naturally a good hook for the media. But a giant blanket fort in downtown Vancouver. This is a campaign by the tourist board of the Faroe Islands. So they didn't have Google Maps or they had Google Maps, but they didn't have Google Street View on their islands. These are a set of relatively remote islands in the North Sea. And so they didn't have Google Street View and they wanted it. And so what they did as a kind of gimmick to get Google's attention and to have fun with it is they invented Google Sheep View, where they put 3D cameras on the back of like a dozen sheep and sent them wandering around the Faroe Islands to record different views of the island, and then produced this thing called Google Sheep View, and got a lot of international media attention because it's a funny story. And Google, in fact, did eventually show up and do the proper Google Street View for the Faroe Islands. So this is a really clever fundraising campaign I like, from the Urban Ministries of Durham in North Carolina. So you may be familiar with the concept of naming rights. So for example, we have Rogers Arena here in Vancouver, and that's named by the company Rogers, and they spent, I expect, $1 million or more to get the right to attach their name to that arena, right? The arena used to be called GM Place because the car company GM used to pay for that, but they changed it. And so what they've done is they've kind of shrunk that concept of naming rights down to some simple everyday objects that people in need might need, so that you can get your name associated with a bunk bed for $250, or even a can of what appears to be Spam for $4, or a backpack for $50. And so the idea when you did this, and it's actually a beautiful website and it's still up, and you get a kind of beautiful looking little social graphic after you make your donation, which you are encouraged to share on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you want to share it, to indicate that, yeah, this can of Spam is named is the Darren Barefoot can of Spam. It was just a very clever way of thinking about this idea of naming rights and reapplying it at a small scale. These are a series of popsicles created by art students in Taiwan, at an art school in Taiwan. And often when we're trying to think creatively or think outside the box about these things, we often look at art projects, digital art projects, or real world art projects. This is a real world project in which these students went and collected polluted water from 100 waterways in Taiwan, and then made these permanently lacquered popsicles you can see with garbage in them and debris and pollution actually in them, and made that as an art installation. It was just very clever and has gotten a lot of attention online. This is the Fisherman alarm clock. This is in Japan. The Japanese Fishermen's Association, the union or association of people who are fishermen, fisher people, they're getting older and older, and young people don't want to be fishermen and women. And so what they've developed is this app called the Fisherman's Alarm Clock. And what happens is you set the app like it's an alarm clock. And then when you wake up in the morning, instead of just an alarm sounding, you actually receive a phone call and are connected to a fisherman or woman who is out on a boat, and they're doing an actual job. And so they talk to you for a couple minutes as you wake up about what the fishing is like today and what their job is like, as a kind of gimmick or strategy to try to recruit more people into the industry. I thought it was a very clever and original approach to that. So those are 10 remarkables. Those are just a little kind of sense of what I'm talking about when I say remarkable, and what I mean as a kind of gimmick or an original way of thinking, original way to solve a problem, and how they pair up with heartbeats so that we have heartbeats and remarkables. Thanks for listening.